welcome back once again to Jack's Tech Corner. I'm here with Jack, and today I'm going to talk to you about a really inexpensive light that you can use for studio portraits. Now I know there's a lot of videos out there on the internet that talk about different lighting techniques and different ways you can do things, and I can show you ways to spend thousands of dollars to get that perfect portrait that you want. But let's face it, we don't all have that kind of money to do a portrait. But you're not to be let out. Don't feel that you can't do a portrait or you can't do lighting because you can't afford the top-notch best equipment. I've been doing this for a long time, and I started out very slowly and very low with my lighting, and I worked my way up through the system, until I bought some pretty decent strobes that I use now. But that's not to say you have to start there. I say the best way to do photography is this. As your photography is increasing, when you start making money with your pictures, you become more of a professional. Or even if you have another full-time job, maybe you want to call yourself a paraprofessional. That's fine. Either way, as soon as you start making that greenback or that dollar, you're a professional. So we're going to talk to you today a little bit about how you can make that money, start getting that money in, and then you can use that money to buy your new equipment. So let's go ahead first and get started with this first light I want to show you, and I want to show you how we use this and how we're going to make this and put this together. So, the first light I actually got from a local department store here that we have, which if you're in the States anywhere, I'm sure you have a Walmart around you somewhere. People cringe sometimes when you say that word, but you can go to Target or any department store that would have these lights. Let me show this to you. Now I do have a light stand here, which the light stand you don't necessarily have to have. You can actually use anything to mount this light on to hold the light, but I just happen to have one here, so we're going to use a light stand today in this demonstration. I'm going to pull it up to about there maybe, and I'll pull this up just a little bit here. Now the light that I have, hopefully you can see this, is a very inexpensive shop light. I think I paid $6 for this, maybe $1 for the bulb. It's just a standard bulb in there, nothing extravagant. So it might have been a total of maybe $6 for the whole rig. It's got a nice clamp on it here, so you can clamp it anywhere you want to use this. And this is like I said, just a stationary light. It's a static light. It's not a strobe, it's not a flash. It's just a static light. I'm going to clamp this up here. Onto my stand. I'm going to raise this up a little bit. Now that is, I'll give you that is the benefit of having a light stand. You can lift it and lower it, but you can actually take this thing and mount on anything you want. I've even seen guys take a couple pieces of 2x4 and make a little stand on the bottom and put a 2x4 up and just use that to put your light on. Let's face it, if you're doing portraits, you're probably inside at this point. Maybe you're working inside your little studio and you're doing some portrait work. So here's our light. The next thing I'm going to do is I got to turn this camera a little bit here, and with some fancy editing we're going to try to get this and do this properly today. Hopefully the audio is working out for us because I have no way to monitor this, but that's another story. Okay, so we have our light set up. We're going to turn that on. Now there's no on and off switch on these because, like I said, they're relatively inexpensive. So I do have it on a little power strip. You can get those anywhere for $1.50. Get yourself a little power strip with a little switch on it. So the light is on. The next thing we're going to do here, and I just happen to have this, you do not need to have a light meter. I'm going to do it for these demonstrations just because I found it. I have it. I'm going to go ahead and use it. And maybe if you have a light meter, you'll say, wow, that's how I can use a light meter. Maybe you get some of that out of there also. But anyway, this is the Sonic L358 light meter we're going to use for this. And we're going to discuss this in a few minutes about static or stationary lighting as opposed to strobe or flash lighting. We're going to make some talk a little bit about that and tell you a little bit of the differences. So let's go ahead and get started here with some test shots, and we're going to see those as we go through these things. Okay, so now that we're set up here and we're ready to take our shot, I have my backdrop set up, which you can use any backdrop again. And geez, this video is kind of turning out like the one I seen on the internet a while back about cheap lighting, where by the end the guy was showing you his strobes and stuff, and I don't want to do that. It's just that I have this backdrop up, again, to get a really inexpensive backdrop. This one on Amazon was about $9. It's pretty nice. It's got a nice gray color to it there, so it works out well for a backdrop. But you can go to your fabric store anywhere and pick yourself up just a piece of fabric big enough to hang in the back of somebody. It's very, very inexpensive. So with a light meter, if you have a light meter, if you don't, you're going to have to adjust your camera for proper exposure. Now, it's fortunate if you do. If you have a light meter, use it. If not, don't worry about it. And I'm sorry I'm using it here. This is just to speed up the video a little bit. But I'm going to tell you how to use this light meter. There's a setting on here for mode, and we're just going to turn it back to incandescent lighting. That's what this is, stationary static incandescent lighting. And it's not a strobe. And all I got to do is push a little button on the side and I'll get a reading. And it's telling me I have a aperture of 8.0 and a shutter speed of 8. That's what I wanted to talk to you about incandescent lighting. When you're using incandescent lighting, what you're going to find out is you have to use a pretty high ISO. It's not a real heavy light output. There's not a whole lot of light coming out of this thing. So what you're going to have to do is raise your ISO up so you can get those shutter speeds up more. We don't want a shutter speed of 8. So on the light meter itself, there is a button for ISO. So if you're using a light meter, if you're watching this because you say, hey, Jack talked about a light meter, hold the ISO button and we can just roll our ISO up without taking readings again. So we're going to go up to you know what, we're just going to go up to 1600. So we're at 1600 rate. No, we're at 1250 on the light meter. 1250. The f-stop, the aperture is 8.0, and my shutter speed is 25. I'm going to set the camera, we're going to take this shot, and I'm going to show you this picture. I'm just setting the camera up right now. And that is why, like I said, down the road, this is a piece of gear that you may want to pick up, is a light meter. It doesn't have to be this particular one. Just pick yourself up a light meter. Because I tell you what, it's a... once I start using it, it's a pretty indispensable piece of gear, especially if you're shooting a manual. Let's take a picture here. I'm using my wireless trigger because I'm doing self-portrait work today, as you can see. Okay, so here's that shot. Alright, now as you can see, that light is definitely coming from the left. Okay, now, so that light's coming from the left. I had another ambient light on the other side that I was using for this video, and that was actually interfering with the light that I have. That's another issue we have with using the ambient or static lighting, is that strobe lighting is more powerful. It'll overcome whatever light you have on. So say you have like I have an overhead light on also right now. So you have that overhead light on for the camera to focus. When that flash goes off, when you're using flash photography, it's brighter than that, so that's the light that you're going to be picking up. You're not going to be picking up the ambient light. But being our light source is dim, probably even more dimmer than the light I have on the other side of me here for the video, that's kind of what you fall into. So, with that said, we see the light here. We're going to take more of a straight-on shot here. And I'm going to look right into the light. Alright, you may see how harsh that shot is. What I'm going to do now is we're going to put a light modifier on there. This light modifier is going to allow us to duplicate pretty much what a softbox does, but at a much, much, much lower cost. And let me go ahead and show you how that setup is done. So as you can see now here, we're back at our light system. This is the light that we're using here to take these shots on this particular video. Like I said, again, very inexpensive shop light, about $6 or so, ready to go and working for us. Now what we're going to do is we are going to use a light modifier on here. So we want to actually tame this light down, because this is very, very bright. It's a very hot light. And we're going to look at that in the pictures here in a little bit too. I'm going to add into this video. We're going to talk about the white balance of these lights compared to a flash. We'll talk about that. Now we're going to use here is this. This is actually a, some people refer to this as a shim. Actually looks like it's getting wore out already. I recommend when you buy one, spend a little bit more than this particular one cost. This one's getting bent up pretty well already, but this thing I found on Amazon for about, again, maybe 12 bucks. Now it also comes with the outer part here. It has a silver reflector, it has a gold reflector, black, so you can use it as a backdrop if you want to use a black backdrop. But we're going to use this as a pass-through deflector, so we can modify this light down a little bit. Now, again, you can hold this up with anything. I've held these things with light stands using this here. Just hold it right in front of it with a light stand. You can use an assistant to hold it up if you have an assistant. I do not have an assistant today, so I am going to put it in my little stand here. And we're just going to lock this in my stand. And now if you can already see that, that light is a lot, it's dimmer, and it's also deflected out a little bit. It's hitting that and it's deflecting it out a little bit. Now there is a lot of different ways we can do this. I don't want the light, as far as the source, to change. I would recommend when you're doing this, pull the light further back so you make it a wider light than this, and actually you can light up that whole entire area and you'll get more even light on somebody. But I want the light to stay the same pretty much for these videos, because I just want to show you the difference on my face when I'm taking these shots. So what I'm going to do now is I'll take another reading, because it's going to actually change your shutter speed, I would imagine. So let's turn this on. Sitting back on the stool here. And now my shutter speed went to 10 instead of 8. So let's turn that off. We're going to change the shutter speed here to 10. It actually went down. It was on 25. So it did. We're going to change it down to 10 because we have less light. So when you have less light, it slows the shutter speed down. That's what happens. There's less light here, right? Because it modified it. So just shutter speed has to slow down and stay open a little longer to capture the light. Let's go ahead and take this shot. And we'll show you this picture here. But you'll see now also how the light is more diffused. You'll notice how the light is more over the body in looking at this shot here. So you see how that looks. So with that said, I'm going to show you these pictures here as we showed you through the video. I'm sure I cut those in already. But now what we're going to do is we're going to take a few minutes, and I'm actually going to look at these pictures with you on the computer. And we are using Lightroom today, but you can use any program you want. The object of this programming is, what I'm talking about here, is basically to allow you to change your white balance a little bit. And I'll explain that a little bit about this type of light compared to a flash and how that is different. So let's go ahead and we're going to switch over, and I'll see you in a minute on the computer. Okay, we're back at the computer now here, sitting on the desktop. And I'm going to show you around a little bit in Lightroom and what I was talking about with incandescent light as opposed to flash. What's the difference? Does it make a difference? And it makes a lot of difference. Let's go ahead and have a look. So here is the pictures I took during this segment. And now we want to look at them in Lightroom, and I want to show you why there's a difference with incandescent lighting. This is the first one we took. What you're going to notice, or if you should notice this anyway, very much so, look at the face. My face is actually more orange, because what happens is when you use incandescent lighting, it's not really geared like a strobe and an off-camera speed light. Those are built basically to sunlight or to natural light as possible. So it's not going to add any color. But when you're using incandescent lighting, this light happens to be very, very hot. And the hotter a light is, the redder your face will become, or the redder the skin tone will become, or whatever you're shooting basically. So what I was telling you about during the program was we have to be able to have something where we can adjust our white balance or our temperature. Now I would suggest, and I didn't do it in this video, but I would suggest that you shoot in RAW format, because then you can change the white balance based on whatever you want it to be. I shot these in JPEG, which is okay because I can still adjust the temperature. That's what I'm going to do here. So I go up here to temperature under my white balance settings, and I'm just going to pull it back just a little bit. I mean, it's very small amount how much you got to pull it back. Because what happens if you get something too cool? So let's go to the left, is cooler. You can see it's negative over here. So let's go left. It starts to become very, very blue. So let's go back. And if we double click, yes, this is the original right there, 0. So all I'm going to do is just bring it up a little bit until my skin tone looks pretty normal. So it's a very, very easy fix. So even though you're using low-cost lighting, no one would ever have to know that, because you can actually fix this up. And here's the next picture. Now look at the picture here in this one and see the orange, the tone on my face, or the temperature of the light, and the one we just fixed. You can even see it in the backdrop. You can see it here again. The one we fixed, and this is the one we was looking straight on. Now, here's the next difference I want you to pick up if you didn't pick it up out of the video. This is without the shim or the light modifier over the light. You can see the shutter speed up here on top says 1/25th of a second. And folks, you can't not shoot incandescent light if you're not using a tripod. Unless you have this big incandescent light. And I know they make those large ones that you can brighten somebody up amazingly bright, like the sunlight. I'm talking about this bulb light that we have. You have to have such a slow shutter speed, and you can see my ISO here was at 1250. So you have to have a slow shutter speed, you'll get camera shake, so make sure it's on a tripod. Let's go ahead and adjust this temperature down just a little bit. And again, you can see it's just a slight little movement here of that thing. It's a -13, so it's not a whole lot. So now this is pretty much dead on light. You can see it lit the background up here, and it didn't really disperse the light at all. Let's look at now with that light modifier. You can see now we have much more lighting going on. It's actually lit up more because we used that, what, $12 or $13 reflector, deflector, shim, whatever you want to call it. And this one here, we can actually adjust exposure, or the temperature down just a little bit, not the exposure. You can actually play with the exposure if you want, and play with that. So in the end, folks, what's going to happen is, by the time people get your pictures, I mean, unless they're there getting them taken, obviously, they don't know what kind of lights you're using. So use whatever light you have available, and, you know, make the best of it. Learn what you have. I guess that's what I'm saying. And that's, you know, over the years, I've actually had an issue with that. I haven't learned what I had. I would watch videos and I would just keep buying and buying and buying. And what happened was I ended up with a room full of equipment, and you end up not using any of it or using very little of it. So, you know, and there's a time and place when you need all of the equipment or some of the equipment, but, and I know it's nice to have it, but learn what you have and make the most of it. I'm going to show you this one here just so I can show you that we can take this, and you can always up the exposure just a little bit, and it's going to make it a pretty nice shot. I mean, you crop this out. Again, this is not really editing video. This is more just a, hey, you did this with a very inexpensive light, and you can see it comes out pretty nice. And all that with a $6 shop light. And, you know, well, this one's just a straight $6 shop light. This is without the shim at all. So there you have it. So it works well. I'm well lit. There's catch lights in my eyes. It's a professional photo. So, well, I'm glad you watched this video here. And if you're not subscribed to my YouTube channel, please subscribe. I'd love to have you here. I produce a lot of new photo videos, photography videos, Photoshop, all different kinds of stuff.
If you'd like to purchase one of my Photoshop Elements DVDs or Lightroom 4 DVD, you can find those on my website, jackstechcorner.com. Pick up a copy of that today. Very, very inexpensive. You can also learn Lightroom. I have an online class I set up. It's classroom.jackstechcorner.com. Go there and you can learn Lightroom on your own pace, and it's always available for you online. So if I add anything new, that content will be there for you also. So I hope I see you back here next time. If you have any questions, please email me at jackstechcorner@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you guys and girls out there about any questions about photography. So until next time, keep those shutters clicking, keep the editors editing, and I'll see you back here very soon on Jack's Tech Corner. Bye for now.